CBS Sports HQ presented by Penske. When you gain the right transportation partner, your business gains ground. This Saturday, one of the great traditions of college football on display on CBS. I'm, of course, referring to the 12th man at Kyle Field in College Station, Texas A&M tradition dating back to the early 1920s. I believe Pete was at the very first one. Crickets. And it will be a raucous Alabama coming to visit, tied 2.5-point favorites as of Wednesday. Nick Saban's team looking to avenge what happened on their last visit there in 2021. 17.5-point dogs. The Aggies held off a furious fight back from the Tide in the second half. Seth Small, the hero, hitting a 28-yard field goal to win it for A&M, 41-38. The win snapped a bunch of Tide streaks at the time. Most notably, it ended their 100-game win streak versus unranked opponents. So, what's in store this time around? Let's ask Brady, Quinn, and Douzable, who now joins the fray here on HQ. Both teams enter this game 4-1 records, 2-0 in the SEC. That's good for the Aggies. I mean, they lost 7 games last season, so looking to turn things around. They did have a 4-point loss to Bama last year, but Brady, as they come into this game now, is this a make-or-break moment for Jimbo Fisher, do you think?
Well, I think it'd be nice to be able to see him start to kind of build on, you know, the foundation that he's laid, being able to take on Nick Saban and get the better of him, which you don't see many former assistants and people who've taken him on really, you know, be able to get the better outside of maybe Kirby Smart at this moment. So that's there for them. But is this really the same Alabama team as we've seen in years past? Probably not. And I think it's harder, too, for Jimbo Fisher when you lose your starting quarterback, Connor Wigman, and then you've got a backup coming in. Look, Max Johnson's played well in his place so far, but I think Jimbo's probably getting the benefit of the doubt, and I'm not sure there's going to be a ton of alumni. If they do lose this game, and if the season goes sideways, he'll want to have to rip off and pay out that $70 million buyout. So, I wouldn't call it a make-or-break moment, but I think it adds a ton of momentum for A&M moving forward. And I think for Alabama, it probably spells, you know, maybe the end of what is looking to be kind of a tight SEC West race, or at least making it a tougher battle than getting the SEC championship game.
To your point, Brady, I don't think this is make or break, right? If you look at what Texas A&M did last year, they went 5-7. So if they get this win versus Bama, yeah, you see your team going in the right direction. Also, to your point, they're not paying out $76 million whether the season goes sideways or not. Now, I honestly believe this Texas A&M team will be pretty good. I think they'll go 8-4 or 9-3. Depends on what happens in this game versus Alabama. And if you look at it, right, Max Johnson has come in. He's been efficient with the football. But this defense really gets after you. I think that's where this game will be won between Texas A&M and Alabama. Whatever defense can make the most plays ultimately probably will win this game. But this is not a make-or-break game for Jimbo Fisher, because a lot of assistants haven't had success against Nick Saban. I believe only 3 total have, and Jimbo Fisher was one of them that was able to get a win versus former coach.
Yeah, 28-3 against his former coaches, but 5-3 in the last 8 games against them. No bowl games in the last 2 seasons for A&M. Jimbo has never had a 10-win season at College Station. But, hey, maybe this is the springboard, if they get the win here, to get that double-digit win. All right, well, Aggies wide receiver Ania Smith, very interesting story this week. He's got some words for Nick Saban and Alabama this week. He's still miffed at how his brother Maurice was treated by Saban and the Tide 6-7 years ago. Take a listen to what he had to say this week.
I feel like this game is always more personal every time I play him, you know what I'm saying? I don't know, it's just what had happened, that's in the past now, not able to control it, but every time I do look on that sideline, I do think about, you know what I'm saying, what had happened. Like I was saying earlier, I kind of know what Nick Saban expects, you know what I'm saying, from his offense, from his defensive side. And I'm not trying to be, like, cocky or nothing, but, like, his class, my brother's class, they was nice, you know what I'm saying? They was real nice. I know what Nick Saban wants, and we gonna mess that up, you know what I'm saying? So if them boys don't got no momentum for real, we're going to have to take that away immediately, so for sure.
So that's what he had to say this week. This is what he had to say back in 2016, saying that I respected Coach Saban, but it's hard to have respect for what he's done to my brother. Saban didn't even care if he had food or money to eat during those weeks. Now, his brother Maurice wanted to go with Kirby Smart at the time, wanted to leave the program. This entire situation has made me have trust issues with coaches because of the way Coach Saban talked to us while he was at my house. He has showed me another side that I didn't think I would see out of him. So when you look at this situation, I'm not sure if this is bulletin board material for Alabama or for the Aggies?
I mean, we're showing a quote from 7 years ago. I'm not sure how much
But it doesn't sound like things have changed much, though.
Yeah, but the problem is when the ball's kicked off, no one cares about this.
Sure.
Like, no one cares. I know in the media we make a big deal about this. The reality is no one cares when all this stuff is said, especially once you get hit in the mouth. And then you start playing the physicality of the game. So, look, whatever happened in the past is in the past. That's 7 years ago. And in this matchup, you touched on the thing I think that's going to be the biggest slam on the field is how the offensive line for Alabama handles the defensive front for A&M. That's where this game could get tilted. We've seen Bama struggle to protect Jalen Milroe. We've seen them struggle to have production. You start a true freshman left tackle and Proctor. He's struggled this year.
Yeah.
This is a very talented defensive front for A&M. If they can't protect, if they can't run the football with McClellan and Williams and Jalen Milroe as part of that, create a couple big plays too in the passing game, that's when this game could go sideways. Now, even though Alabama's defense has been lights out the past couple of weeks, they've beaten a couple SEC opponents by double digits. To me, there's still a decent shot that A&M stays in this game because of that defensive front, the way they can harass and get after opposing quarterbacks.
Well, to your point, Brady, this happened 6 years ago, but it's personal, right? If you're in Aeneas' shoes, right, your brother went through this situation with Saban, you're not going to have, butterflies and rainbows when it comes to Nick Saban. You're obviously going to feel a certain way. And if you look at this game in totality, it's a lot of personal to it, right? We saw just in the beginning of last year where Nick Saban essentially comes out and talks about Jimbo Fisher getting the #1 recruiting class and he paid for him. So it was personal for Jimbo Fisher in that game last year, which was a 24-20 really tight game last year. So it's personal for sure. Is it added bulletin board material? I don't think either one of these teams need any more bulletin board material because this has become a mini rivalry, even going back to when Johnny Football was at Texas A&M and he went into Alabama and won. So these teams know each other really well. It's going to be personal for them because Jimbo Fisher was an assistant coach for Nick Saban, right? Then Nick Saban last year calls him out saying he paid for his recruiting class. And for Aeneas Smith, yes, it's personal because this happened to his brother. And if you look at it, Brady, when we were in school and the time Aeneas was in school, for people that don't understand, when you wanted to transfer, your coach had to sign off on it, essentially. So no coach is going to want to sign off on a player going to an SEC rival. That was the situation. So Aeneas feels a way about it, and I get it. But at the end of the day, like you said, when the ball's kicked off, it's going to come down to who's going to be more physical, and it's going to come down to these two defenses.
Aeneas, by the way, in 2 games against Alabama, 12 receptions, 208, and 4 touchdowns. So obviously the motivation is there for him, if not necessarily for the team. You mentioned Jalen Milroe. Let's talk about him. I mean, he's been pretty good since he's gotten back to the QB1 job. I mean, he's completing over 81% of his passes. Had his first start against the Aggies last season, had a really nice showing there, threw for 3 touchdowns, I believe.
Yep.
So when you look at how he's playing coming into this game, I mean, what are your expectations in terms of Milroe and what he's expecting to see from the Aggies, given he had such a good performance against them?
A couple things. I think there's been a misconception about what happened versus USF. He wasn't benched. They had the opportunity to look at a couple other starters at quarterback. That game became a lot more tight than a lot of Bama fans obviously wanted people on the outside realize.
Hang on. If you were that quarterback, would you think that you were benched?
No, because they had private conversations behind the scenes about it. So I think they understood what was going on. The reality is they wanted to see what they had in a kid who transferred and a kid who they think a lot of in Ty Simpson. They realized they're not the answer. It's been Milroe since. It's his team since. The offense is catered around what Milroe does well, and that's why you're going to see him a part of the rushing attack, and then shots downfield, screens quick to the outside. That's really kind of how they've formulated this offense now with the speed that they have and his skill set to allow him to excel. So moving forward, look, he's getting more comfortable. The more and more reps he gets, he's going to get better and better, especially playing for the pocket and doing the things that Tommy Rees wants him to do. But the reality is it's his team now. And I think he's going to be the difference maker in this game, especially if they get out of the rush lanes, they rush too hard upfield. On pass plays, nothing's there. I mean, you know, Leger, like he can take off and he can hurt you with his legs.
Do you guys know how to ride bikes? Both of you guys. And when you first learned how to ride a bike, you had training wheels on the side,
Where's
right?
this going? Yeah.
Well, to me, it's time for Alabama to take these training wheels off Jalen Milroe. And to your point, I get what you're saying, the screen game, being able to take advantage of those one-on-one situations down the field.
Don't say it, because we saw that in Texas and it didn't work out.
This is my thing, right? We also saw in Texas that the game plan for Tommy Rees wasn't good. They literally tried to make him.
It was what you're trying to say, though. And that's the thing is, we don't need to take it off. We just need to allow him to do what he can do and then allow this offense to continue to evolve.
I get that, but I'm saying do it more. Like, get him on the move. Let him throw. I mean, he had 12 attempts last week. If you look at that Mississippi State defense, the 2 quarterbacks previous to that only had 3 incompletions together. Why not get him comfortable throwing the ball in a game like that where you know you're going to win? Because there is going to be one game where that defense, like the Texas game, that defense is not going to show up like it did, and Jalen Milroe is going to have to make plays down the field. So I think it's time for Tommy Rees to take the training wheels off as far as, I'm not saying put him in the pocket and have him throw 35 times, but give him some more options on RPOs or get him outside the pocket, which they have done, but just do it more consistently, because there'll be a time, and it could be this week, where this Texas A&M defense stops the run game, and then he's going to have to go out there and make plays. And we've seen him do it. Like, to Jeremy's point, 80% completion percentage when he's one-on-one situations.
The past 2 weeks. But
yeah, the past 2 weeks. With Jermaine Burton's out there one-on-one, we saw it versus Ole Miss, him staring down the barrel of the pressure, hitting that guy down the seam in the second quarter. Like, that's a big-time throw.
Sure.
And a quarterback is going to gain confidence if you empower him. I think they need to empower him a little bit more.
I've played it and I've been there. I'm just telling you right now, you don't want to put him in position 2 again where he's not going to succeed. You got to put your players in positions where they excel. And
I get
that's
that.
where he's at. So what you're talking about is great in theory, but if he goes out there and doesn't work out well, you end up losing from it. Now you're out of the SEC West race.
But I think it's the way you do it, right? Like Justin Fields in Chicago, like the way that Luke Getsy was doing it last year and the beginning of this year, trying to make him a traditional pocket quarterback. That's not who they are. Like, get him on the edge. He's comfortable throwing on the run. And to your point, when something's not there, give him the option to take off. He did it last year versus Texas A&M when he ran for over 80 yards. So I just think they need to trust him a little bit more, because if you want to go on this run, starting this week versus Texas A&M, you talked about it, that defense will suffocate you. 7 sacks last week versus Arkansas. If you just put him in the pocket and have him be a traditional quarterback, he's going to get killed.
Yeah, they're not
but if you get him on the move and trust him a little bit more, I think it'll open up this offense.
Grew up playing football not far from A&M, so he's certainly familiar with the area, familiar with the fan base, and as mentioned, had the big game last year against him in his first start. All right, so when you look at the line here, I mean, it's really tight, 2.5, total sitting just under 50. Brady, when you look at those numbers,
playing the 2.5, not even thinking about it. I think Alabama's defense matches up well with Texas A&M, and obviously Max Johnson's done well the past couple of weeks. 5 touchdowns on 1 interception. Yeah. But Quinn, McKinstry, you look at the secondary, they'll take away Evan Stewart. He's the most dynamic playmaker for A&M. And I think on the flip side, they're going to run the ball, and they're going to force the issue. I don't know that he's going to throw more than 20 times, 25 times in this game. That might be the most of it, but that's all they're probably going to need to do because of Milroe's legs and Williams as well as McClellan. So to me, I'm laying the 2.5 points here. I think Alabama goes in there, gets a win. They keep moving on in this SEC West on their way to an SEC championship game.
I'm with you. I'm laying at 2.5 too. When I was talking about giving him more in the offense, I'm not saying throw it 30 times, but at least 25 like you talked about. He only threw the ball 12 times last week. To your point, they didn't need to because they were able to run the ball really effectively. And if you look at it, Max Johnson has played well, but if you look at that Arkansas game last week, let's not forget, he threw a pick 6 in that game, and the defense got a pick 6, and then they also got a punt return from Aeneas Smith. So they had 34 points, but only 20 of it came from the offense. So when you're playing this defense from Alabama and you can't put up 21 points, it's going to be tough for you. I like Alabama's defense. And if you look at the schedule going down the season, it shapes up really well for Alabama. The one game that concerns me, and we'll learn about Kentucky this week, is at Kentucky. But if you look at it, they got Tennessee at home, LSU at home, and then, of course, the Auburn game is always going to be a tough game because that's a rival game. But if Alabama goes and handles business now, I honestly think they go 11-1 and run the table and get into the SEC championship.
Looking to go 3-0 in the SEC play this week with a big win at College Station. Jimbo Fisher, we've talked about the fact that he's the first one, the assistant of Saban to win. He's also lost 5 times, too, but looking to correct that this week. Alabama at Texas A&M. It is our CBS Game of the Week from College Station. Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson, Jenny Dell taking it all in. Bama have won 35 of their past 36 road games versus unranked opponents. Slight favorites here. Coverage underway Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS. And, of course, you can stream, as always, on Paramount+.